Have you ever watched a mother raise her hand to her own daughter in front of 200 guests, in a ballroom full of judges and surgeons and old-money Boston families? No. Then picture this with me for a second. You're standing at your sister's wedding, 200 people watching. Your mother just put a stack of legal paperwork in front of you on a stage, in front of a live microphone, demanding you sign away your $2.1 million penthouse as a wedding present for your sister. You say no. Her hand cracks across your face so hard your earring goes flying across the marble floor. That happened to me. April 11th, 2025. They wanted tears. They wanted an apology. They wanted the same girl who'd folded every single time for 32 years. Instead, I bent down, picked up my earring, walked straight out of that ballroom, and made exactly one phone call. 58 minutes later, a woman walked through those doors that my mother had told every single person in that room was gone, mentally finished, locked away, incapable of managing her own affairs. And the second my mother's eyes landed on her, she started screaming. Because that woman didn't just walk in alone. She walked in with a lawyer, a briefcase, and 3 years of buried evidence. Stick with me on this one, because by the end you'll understand exactly why my mother went pale enough to faint. But only smash that like button and subscribe if this actually gets under your skin the way it should. Now let me rewind. 3 years before that ballroom, before any of this, back to where the whole thing cracked open. The call came on an ordinary Thursday night in April, 2 years earlier. I was in my one-bedroom rental in the Fenway neighborhood, eating cold noodles straight out of the container, hunched over sketches for a client's bathroom remodel, when my grandmother's name lit up the screen. Claire, sweetheart. Margaret Ashworth's voice was the same as it always was, level, unhurried, the voice of a woman who never once needed to raise it to be obeyed. I need you to listen to me carefully right now. My grandmother had spent 29 years teaching contract law at Boston College before she retired. She did not waste breath on small talk. So when she told me she was rewriting her will and leaving me her penthouse at the harbor, the one she'd bought back in 2017 for $1.6 million, worth well past $2 million now, I put my chopsticks down and I listened with my whole body. Why me? I asked. Not because I didn't want it, because I genuinely could not compute it. Because you're the only one who shows up, she said simply. 10 years of Sunday visits, Claire. Your mother mails a card at Christmas. Your sister doesn't even do that. You bring me hydrangeas because you actually remember they're my favorite. You sit with me on the days I have absolutely nothing interesting to say. My eyes went hot. Grandma, the papers will be done next month. Harold Whitfield's handling it. He's been your attorney for 20 years. She went quiet for a second. Your mother is not going to take this well. That, it turned out, was the single biggest understatement of my entire life. The news leaked out to my family within 2 weeks. To this day, I still don't know how. Maybe someone at Harold's firm mentioned it to someone who mentioned it to someone else. Boston's legal world is smaller than anybody thinks. All I know is that within a month, my mother had called what she referred to as a family sit-down at her $4 million house in Beacon Hill. I walked into that living room, and I could tell immediately it wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. My father, Edward, sunk into his leather chair like a judge behind a bench. My mother, Diane, perched on the edge of the settee, her Cartier bangle catching the light every time she moved her wrist. My sister, Brooke, balanced on the arm of the couch like she was posing for a magazine spread. They'd arranged themselves like a tribunal, and I was the defendant. Claire. My mother's voice was honey poured over broken glass. We need to discuss your grandmother's state of mind. State of mind is fine, I said, sitting down in the one remaining chair, a stiff wooden thing angled to face all 3 of them like an interrogation seat. She seems completely lucid to me, is clearly not thinking rationally. Diane crossed her legs, handing over a $2 million property to one single grandchild, cutting everyone else out entirely. That's not the decision of a sound mind. She's not cutting anyone out, I said. She's giving something to the person she chose. That's her right. Brooke let out a delicate, theatrical little sob. This is so unfair. I love Grandma too, I don't have the time to visit like Claire does. I have a career. I have a life. You have a trust fund and a fiancé with a yacht, I thought, and did not say it. My father finally spoke, in that flat, measured attorney cadence he'd perfected over 3 decades. The fair thing, Claire, would be for you to decline the inheritance. Or at minimum agree to sell the unit and split the proceeds across the family. I stared at him. This was Edward Ashworth, a man who hadn't asked me one real question about my life in years. This was the same Edward Ashworth who'd skipped my college graduation for a golf outing he later tried to pass off as a scheduling conflict. And now this man was lecturing me on fairness. "I'm not declining anything," I said. "And I'm not selling anything either. Grandma made her decision because it's what she wanted. If you have a problem, take it up with her." The room dropped 10 degrees in about 2 seconds. My mother's smile disappeared entirely. "Then I hope," she said quietly, "you're prepared to live with the consequences of being this selfish." Those consequences arrived fast. By the middle of that summer, I'd been silently dropped from the family group chat. I found out about Brooke's engagement party from an Instagram post, a photo of her surrounded by cousins, champagne raised, at a venue I recognized as the Harborview Hotel. Caption: "Future Mrs. Caldwell," 3 diamond emojis, no mention of me at all. Nobody called, nobody texted, nobody invited me. When I brought it up to my mother, she said, "Oh, we just assumed you'd be too busy with your little decorating thing." My little decorating thing was a licensed interior design studio with 14 paying clients and revenue that had doubled that year. But to Diane Ashworth, anything that wasn't a law degree or a rich husband was just a hobby you'd grow out of eventually. The exclusion wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was what came after it, the story my mother started telling anyone who'd listen. I overheard her at a neighborhood function I hadn't technically been invited to. Claire manipulated my mother, visited constantly, turned her against the rest of us. You know how vulnerable elderly people can get. She painted me as a predator, a schemer who'd exploited a confused old woman for a $2 million payday. And through every single bit of it, I stayed quiet. I never corrected her in public. I told myself if I just kept my head down, the storm would pass on its own. I didn't understand yet that my silence was exactly the thing she was counting on. What I also didn't understand, not yet, was why Grandma Margaret suddenly moved into Willowbrook Senior living that same fall, a high-end facility out in Wellesley running $11,000 a month. She told me she wanted peace and quiet. She told me she was done with the drama. But some Sundays, when I visited, I'd catch something flicker across her face, something that looked almost like fear. "Grandma," I asked her once, "did something happen between you and Mom?" She stared out at the manicured gardens for a long time before answering. "Some things," she finally said, "are better left alone, at least for now." I let it go. I shouldn't have. It would take 3 more years before I understood exactly what she was sitting on and why she was waiting to use it. Fast forward. 2 months before the wedding that flipped everything upside down. I was in my studio on a slow Friday, buried in fabric swatches for a townhouse project when the mail came. Buried in the invoices was a heavy cream envelope, my name written in calligraphy so ornate it took me a second to actually read it. Brooke's wedding. April 11th. The Langham Ballroom. Black tie. I stood there staring at it for a full minute. 2 years of being treated like a ghost. No holidays, no birthdays, no random texts, and suddenly they wanted me at the wedding. My phone rang that same night. My mother. "Claire, darling," Diane's voice was warm, the warmest it had been since the inheritance news broke years earlier. "Did you get Brooke's invitation? Wonderful. You know, this wedding is going to be the perfect chance for this family to heal. To show everyone that the Ashworths are united." A pause. "I've been thinking, this would actually be the ideal moment to revisit our conversation about the penthouse. Brooke and Nathaniel are going to need somewhere to live after the honeymoon, something appropriate for a young couple starting out." I closed my eyes. Of course, the invitation wasn't an olive branch, it was bait. "Mom, the penthouse is mine. Grandma left it to me. That hasn't changed and it isn't changing." "Nothing has to change, sweetheart. You'd simply be transferring it as a wedding gift. Imagine how generous that would look. Imagine how proud your grandmother would be seeing you support your own sister." The nerve of it took my breath away. Using my grandmother, the exact woman who'd specifically chosen me, as leverage to convince me to give it all away. Not transferring anything. Claire. The warmth vanished instantly. "Brooke deserves a real start. She's marrying into the Caldwell family. Nathaniel's father is a senior partner at one of the biggest firms in the city. They'll be entertaining, hosting. They need a home that reflects that. Then his father can buy them one." Silence stretched out between us. When she spoke again, her voice had turned to ice. "I expect you to think very carefully before that wedding, and I expect you to make the right choice." She hung up. I sat there as the winter light died across my drafting table, understanding exactly what was at stake now. If I showed up and refused again, in front of every single person my mother had spent decades cultivating, she'd make me pay publicly. She'd tell the whole room I'd ruined her daughter's wedding out of pure selfishness. She'd turn Boston's entire legal community against me, a community that fed my design business half its referrals. But if I skipped it entirely, that was its own kind of surrender. Proof I had something to hide. I RSVP'd yes. 1 week before the wedding, my phone rang at 7 in the morning. Grandma Margaret, "Sweetheart," she said, and there was an urgency in her voice I'd only heard maybe twice in my life. "I need you to listen very carefully. If something happens at that wedding, and I believe something will, I want you to call Harold Whitfield immediately. Write this number down." I grabbed a pen. "Grandma, what is going on? What's about to happen?" "Your mother thinks I don't know what she's planning. She forgets I was practicing law before she was even born." Her voice stayed level, but I could hear steel underneath it. "I've prepared everything, Claire. Harold has every document he needs. If it comes to it, they're ready." "Documents? What documents?" "Just remember the number." A pause. "And remember that I love you. Whatever happens tonight, I love you." She hung up before I could ask another question. I saved that number, not understanding yet why my hands were shaking. I wouldn't understand until I walked through the doors of that ballroom myself. April 11th, 5:30 in the evening. The Langham rose over the square like a monument to old money and older rules. I'd driven past that building 100 times, but walking through those gilded doors as a guest, as an Ashworth, felt like stepping into enemy territory. The ballroom was stunning. White orchids spilling from crystal chandeliers, a 12-piece band playing standards in the corner, waiters circulating with champagne on silver trays. Every square inch screamed money and taste and my mother's fingerprints. 130-some guests, I'd counted the chairs during cocktail hour. Lawyers, surgeons, investment bankers, old Boston families whose names sit on hospital wings. My mother's entire audience gathered in one room. My father found me by the ice sculpture, a swan, of course, about 10 minutes after I walked in. "Claire!" He nodded, eyes sliding past me like I was furniture he was trying not to bump into. "Glad you made it." We stood there in silence. 32 years, and we had nothing left to say to each other. Brooke floated over in a cloud of white tulle and crystal, veil trailing behind her like a promise of the life she'd always assumed she was owed. She hugged me, arms circling but never quite touching, the kind of hug you'd give a stranger at a networking event. "Claire, you came." Her smile was camera-ready. Perfect teeth, perfect makeup, perfect performance. "Of course I came, you're my sister." She pulled back and her expression shifted, calculating. "Did you bring the paperwork?" I blinked. "What paperwork?" "Mom said you'd have the transfer documents ready today, for the Penthouse, our wedding gift." Her voice stayed light, playful even, but her eyes were flint, so there it was. They'd already decided among themselves that I'd fold. The invitation, the phone call, the whole reconciliation act, just a runway leading to this exact moment. "Brooke, there are no transfer documents." "What do you mean?" "I mean the Penthouse is mine. It was never a gift and it's not up for a vote." Her perfect smile cracked. "But Mom said," "I don't know what Mom told you, but I'm not signing anything, not today." "Not ever." Her jaw tightened, and for 1 second she looked exactly like our mother, the same barely contained flash of fury. "Nathaniel and I already told the realtor we didn't need the condo. We already told people, Claire." "You told people about an apartment that isn't yours." "It should be. You don't even need it. You live in that little rental. You don't entertain, you don't have anyone to impress. What's the actual point of you owning a $2 million penthouse?" The point. What was ever the point of me having anything nice, anything worth something, anything that made me matter as much as she did? I'd been asked some version of that question my entire life. "The point," I said quietly, "is that Grandma wanted me to have it. Her wishes matter more than your real estate plans." She leaned in close, bridal perfume overwhelming. "Mom's going to handle this," she whispered. "And when she does, don't say I didn't warn you." She swept off toward her bridesmaids, leaving me alone by the melting swan. I headed for the bar, needing something to steady my hands, when a woman in a cream Chanel suit stepped directly into my path. Patricia Colfax, one of my mother's tennis partners, married to a federal judge. "You're Claire, aren't you?" Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Diane's mentioned you. I heard you're holding on to some property for your grandmother. Very responsible of you." Selling it soon. There it was, the exact story my mother had been spinning for years. I wasn't the heir. I was the babysitter, the temporary custodian keeping an asset warm until it got redistributed properly. Actually, I said, I live there. Her eyebrows shot up. Oh, I thought, well, never mind. She disappeared into the crowd fast. I stood there alone in that sea of silk and judgment, finally understanding exactly what I was up against that night. I stepped out onto the terrace for air, and that's when my phone rang. Grandma, Claire. Her voice had an edge to it I'd never heard before. Where are you right now? Somewhere private. On the balcony. Grandma, what's going on? You're scaring me. I need to tell you something before tonight goes any further, and I need you to hear all of it. A breath. Do you remember the property in Sandwich, the Cape Cod house? The one you used to take me to as a kid. That house was in my name until 3 years ago. Harold found something strange going through my records, a sale in 2022 of a house I never sold. My breath caught. What do you mean you never sold it? I mean exactly that. Your mother sold it for $890,000. She forged my signature to do it. World tilted sideways. I gripped the railing. Grandma, I didn't want to believe it either. That's why I hired a firm, Bergman Forensic Document Services, right here in the city. They compared the signature against authentic samples of my handwriting. A pause. Probability of forgery, 98.4%. 98.4%. That wasn't a doubt, that was a verdict. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you go to the police? Because she's my daughter, Claire. Her voice cracked just barely before she steadied it. Because I still hoped there might be some explanation I wasn't seeing. But we both know there wasn't. That's why you moved to Willowbrook, I said, the pieces slamming together. Not for peace and quiet, because you couldn't stand being near her anymore. I couldn't trust her, and I couldn't prove anything without blowing everything apart. So I protected what I still could, the penthouse, what was left of my assets, and I waited. Waited for what? For her to make a mistake. Her voice hardened. Tonight might be it. If she pushes too far, if she exposes herself in front of everyone, Harold has exactly what he needs to respond. The forensic report, the original transaction paperwork, witnesses who can confirm where I was the week that signature was supposedly signed. I was in Massachusetts General with a broken hip. I couldn't have signed a grocery list, let alone a deed. I closed my eyes, letting the weight of it settle. My mother hadn't just tried to manipulate me. She'd stolen from her own mother, committed fraud, and let everyone believe Grandma was the one losing her grip on reality. Whatever happens in there, Grandma said, don't sign anything. If she corners you, if she pushes you past what you can take, call Harold. Tell him the documents are needed. He'll know exactly what that means. A pause, and I could hear the smile creeping into her voice. If Harold calls me, I'll be there within the hour. I've been waiting 3 years for this, darling. I'm not going to miss it. She hung up. I stood on that balcony a long moment, cold wind pulling at my hair, then straightened my dress and walked back inside. I thought I was ready. I was wrong about that, but not in the way you'd expect. Because what happened next was worse than anything I'd braced myself for. If any part of this is landing close to home for you, the family that turns your kindness into a debt they think you owe forever, tell me in the comments right now. I read every single one. Dinner had come and gone. The toasts were done, my father's stiff little speech about legacy, Nathaniel's father waxing on about 2 great families merging, Brooke's maid of honor telling a sorority story that got polite laughter. I sat at table 16 near the back with a cluster of distant cousins who all seemed a little unsure why I was there. Fine by me. I wanted to disappear. My mother had other plans. The clink of a fork against crystal cut through the room. She stood at the head table, champagne in one hand, microphone in the other, gown glittering under the chandeliers. If I could have everyone's attention, I'd like a moment for something special. A family tradition Brooke asked me to help with. I felt the first prickle of warning crawl up my spine. As many of you know, this family takes care of its own. We support each other. We sacrifice for each other. Her eyes swept the room and landed on me just briefly before moving on. And tonight, in that spirit, I'd like to invite my eldest daughter, Claire, up here with me. 130 pairs of eyes swung toward table 16. I didn't move. I couldn't. Claire, sweetheart, come on up, don't be shy. What choice did I actually have? Refuse, and I was the difficult one. The ungrateful one. The sister who wrecked the wedding with her stubbornness. I stood, legs feeling like they belonged to someone else, and walked the entire length of that ballroom, past the whispers, up onto the platform where my mother waited with a smile like a drawn blade. There she is. She wrapped an arm around my shoulders, affection for the crowd, a grip for me. Now everyone, Claire's been holding on to something very precious. My mother left her a beautiful penthouse in the Harbor District. $2.1 million. Quite the inheritance. Murmurs rolled through the room. Patricia Colfax nodded knowingly, like she'd already told everyone this exact story. Claire's been keeping it safe, my mother continued, waiting for the perfect moment to share it with the family. And what better moment than this, Brooke's wedding, the start of her new life. She produced a folder from nowhere. I hadn't even seen her holding it, and opened it to reveal a stack of legal documents. Transfer of deed, quitclaim agreement, my name already typed onto the signature line. All Claire needs to do is sign, and this incredible gift will help Brooke and Nathaniel start their marriage in a home that truly reflects their future. Room actually applauded. Applauded like I was about to perform some tender act of sisterly love and not get publicly strong-armed out of an inheritance on a stage. Mom, I said, quiet but steady, I'm not signing this. Her smile didn't slip an inch. Don't be nervous, sweetheart, it's just paperwork. It's not just paperwork. It's the apartment Grandma left to me, not to Brooke, not to this family, to me. Applause died instantly. What replaced it was a silence so total I could hear the ice sculpture dripping. Claire. Her grip on my shoulder tightened, voice dropping, but the mic still carried every word. Let's not make this difficult. I'm not making it anything. I'm telling you no. Brooke appeared at the edge of the stage, mascara already threatening, face arranged into wounded innocence. You're really doing this. On my wedding day, I didn't ask to be called up here. I didn't ask to be put on display. All of you set this up without asking me anything. Because we knew you'd be selfish, she spat. We knew you'd pick that stupid apartment over your own family. It's not stupid when you're the one living in it. Nathaniel's father coughed uncomfortably. A waiter near the kitchen door froze mid-step, tray still in the air. This was not the evening anyone had pictured. My mother's composure finally snapped, her face flushing, her voice climbing. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you, raised you, educated you, supported your little business, you can't do this one thing for your sister. You didn't support my business. You've never once been to my studio. And you didn't raise me, Grandma did, every single summer while you were off at conferences and galas and anywhere else that wasn't home. Gasps scattered through the crowd. I'd said too much, and I knew it, but I couldn't stop. The penthouse is mine because Grandma wanted it to be, because I showed up, because I actually cared. And no amount of humiliating me in front of 130 strangers is going to change that. Hand moved so fast I never saw it coming. The slap cracked across my cheek hard enough to snap my head sideways. My silver earring, the one Grandma had given me on my 30th birthday, flew off and bounced across the marble with a sound like a tiny bell. The room went utterly, completely silent. For one long moment I just stood there. My cheek was on fire. My vision blurred. Every single eye in that ballroom was locked on me, waiting to see what I'd do. What I did was breathe. I bent down, picked up the earring, bent slightly, not broken, straightened it carefully, and put it back on. And I looked at my mother. That's the last time you ever touch me. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. I turned and walked off that stage, through the tables, past the whispering, out the double doors and into the lobby. I didn't run. I didn't cry. I found a quiet corner by the concierge desk, pulled out my phone and dialed the number I'd saved a week earlier. One ring. Whitfield and Associates. This is Claire Ashworth, I said, voice flat calm. Tell my grandmother the documents are needed. Understood, Miss Ashworth. She'll be there within the hour. I hung up, sat down on a velvet bench, touched my burning cheek and waited. 1 hour. That was all I needed. 1 hour until absolutely everything changed, and if you think you know how this ends, trust me, you don't. Not yet, 8:45. I was still on that bench when the main doors opened and my grandmother walked in. Margaret Ashworth was 79 years old, moving with a cane now, slower than the woman I remembered from childhood. But everything else about her still carried that same weight that had made her one of the most feared professors at Boston College for 3 decades. Gray cashmere coat over a simple black dress, silver hair pinned back. Beside her walked Harold Whitfield, mid-40s, wire-rimmed glasses, charcoal suit, a briefcase that looked heavy enough to hold the entire evening inside it. Grandma. I stood up, and for 1 second my composure completely broke. You came. She crossed the lobby and took my face in both hands, examining my cheek with eyes that missed absolutely nothing. She hit you. Her jaw tightened. Then she kissed my forehead gently, exactly the way she used to when I was small and had fallen off my bike. Then let's finish this, she said. We walked into the ballroom together. Chaos everywhere, clusters of guests huddled together, champagne forgotten. Brooke was actually crying now, real tears. while Nathaniel and his parents hovered nearby looking mortified. My mother stood near the head table, gesturing wildly at my father, who was clearly trying to calm her down. Nobody noticed us at first. Then someone gasped. Then another. Then my mother turned and saw her own mother walking across that marble floor toward her. Mom. The word came out strangled. Her face went completely white. What, how are you? I'm here for my granddaughter's wedding, Grandma said, her voice carrying easily across the suddenly silent room. I wasn't invited, of course. I decided to come anyway. I hope Brooke doesn't mind. Brooke, mascara streaming, could only stare. What is this? My mother's voice climbed. What are you doing here? What I should have done 3 years ago. Grandma stopped about 10 feet from her daughter, close enough that every single person could hear. I'm telling the truth. She turned to face the room, 130 people, plenty of them lawyers and judges who understood exactly what was unfolding. My name is Margaret Ashworth. I taught contract law at Boston College for 29 years. I'm of completely sound mind, and I am here to confirm that the penthouse at the harbor, the property my daughter has publicly demanded my granddaughter surrender, was left to Claire Ashworth in my will, dated May 3, 2020. That will is legal, valid, and enforceable. There are no other claims to that property. Opened the briefcase and pulled out a document. This is a certified copy of Mrs. Ashworth's will, notarized and filed with the county probate court. I've served as her attorney for 23 years and can personally attest to its authenticity. My mother's face twisted. This is absurd. Mother, you're confused. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. Grandma's voice was ice. What you don't understand is that I've been watching you. 3 years, Diane. I've been watching everything. She nodded to Harold, who withdrew a second folder. These are the transaction records for the property in Sandwich, deeded in my name until September of 2022, when it was sold for $890,000. Room went dead silent. I could hear the ice melting in the abandoned champagne buckets. I did not sell that house, Grandma continued. I could not have sold that house. I was in Massachusetts General Hospital for 6 weeks that fall, recovering from a broken hip. I signed nothing. I authorized nothing. My mother's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Harold produced a third document. This is the forensic analysis from Bergman Forensic Document Services, a certified handwriting examination firm. They compared the signature on the Sandwich sale documents against verified samples of Mrs. Ashworth's authentic handwriting. He turned to the room, voice carrying the weight of a courtroom. They're finding the signature is inconsistent with Mrs. Ashworth's genuine hand. Probability of forgery, 98.4%. The murmurs turned into an uproar. I saw Nathaniel's father, senior partner at his firm, trade a very significant look with another attorney by the bar. Lying. My mother's voice cracked. This is fabricated. You're senile, Mother. You don't know what you're saying. I'm sharp enough to hire experts, Grandma replied. I'm sharp enough to preserve every piece of evidence, and I'm sharp enough to have already forwarded this entire file to the district attorney's office last week. All the color drained from my mother's face. You didn't. Forgery and fraud, Diane. Up to 5 years under state law. Grandma's voice went almost gentle, the same tone she must have once used to explain something difficult to a first-year law student. I didn't want to believe my own daughter could do this. I gave you 3 years to confess, to make it right. Instead, you spent those 3 years slandering my granddaughter, calling her a manipulator, calling me senile, trying to steal her inheritance the exact same way you stole my property. My mother spun toward my father. Edward, say something. Stop this. My father, who had stood frozen through all of it, took a step backward. I didn't know, he said, voice flat and hollow. I didn't know about the Cape House. You signed the transfer, she shrieked. You were there. I signed what you told me to sign. I didn't know it was forged. Room watched, horrified and riveted, as 30-plus years of marriage came apart in real time in front of everyone they knew. Brooke finally spoke, voice small and cracked. Mom, what is Grandma talking about? My mother didn't answer. She couldn't. She stood in the center of the exact stage she'd built for herself, her perfect wedding, her perfect audience, watching every bit of it collapse. Grandma turned to me, eyes tired but resolute. Claire, I'm sorry it took this long. Before I could respond, Nathaniel's father stepped forward, clearing his throat with the practiced ease of a man used to smoothing things over in courtrooms. Mrs. Ashworth, perhaps we could discuss this privately. Surely you'd consider reevaluating the will. Given the circumstances, the new family. Mr. Caldwell. Her voice cut through him like surgical steel. I am not reconsidering anything. The penthouse belongs to Claire. It will continue to belong to Claire. And if you're wondering whether I'll be leaving my remaining assets to a granddaughter who just married a man willing to beg for property at a ballroom door, the answer is no. Nathaniel's face went red. For a second, I thought he might say something he'd regret. Instead, Grandma just smiled, the exact smile that used to make courtroom lawyers nervous. You married the wrong Ashworth, young man. And frankly, given what I've seen of your character tonight, Brooke is welcome to you. She turned away without another word. Harold stepped in front of Nathaniel before he could follow. I'd advise you to return to your wedding, Mr. Caldwell. Anything you say right now could become relevant to an ongoing investigation. Nathaniel, son of one of the city's most prestigious partners, suddenly looked very young and very frightened. He retreated without another word. We stepped out into the cold night air together. It smelled like rain coming. Grandma, I said, voice thick, I'm so sorry about the wedding, the scene, all of it. She patted my arm. Don't be. I've been waiting 3 years to say every one of those words. It felt wonderful. Despite everything, I laughed, raw and broken, but real. What happens now? Harold answered, measured and professional. The district attorney's office will move forward with their investigation. Mrs. Ashworth has provided substantial documentation. Whether charges are filed depends on their review, but the evidence is compelling. Mom, Grandma's face softened into something that might have been grief, or might have been relief, hard to tell which. That's for the courts now. I did what I needed to do. The rest isn't mine to carry. I thought about my mother, still in that ballroom surrounded by the very people she'd spent her whole life impressing, watching all of it crumble. Part of me felt something ugly and satisfied. A bigger part just felt exhausted. Not doing this for revenge, I said, not entirely sure if I was telling them or myself. No, Grandma agreed. You're doing it because some things can't be allowed to keep happening. Some lies can't stay standing. She looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. There's no cruelty in telling the truth, Claire. There's only clarity. A car pulled up to the curb. Harold had arranged it while we were still inside. I should get you back to Willowbrook, he said. Long night. Grandma waved a dismissive hand. I'm not fragile, Harold, just tired. She turned to me. Come see me tomorrow. We have a lot to talk about, and I want to actually hear how the business is going, the real version, not the polished one you always give me. Be there. She hugged me, a real one this time, nothing like the performance embrace my mother had given me on that stage. I held on longer than I probably should have. I love you, my sweet girl, she murmured. Love you too, Grandma. She got into the car with Harold's help, and I watched it pull away into the dark. I stood on that sidewalk alone for a long time. My phone buzzed, a text from a friend. Just saw someone from the Herald's legal desk tweet something cryptic about a prominent Boston attorney. I typed back that I'd explain later. Another text came in from a number I didn't recognize. Claire, it's Jennifer Colfax, Patricia's daughter-in-law from Whitmore Legal. We were at the wedding tonight. I owe you an apology. I believed things I shouldn't have. If you're ever interested in design work for our new offices, please call me. I stared at the screen. Jennifer Colfax, one of the women I'd watched whispering with Patricia earlier that night, now offering me business. I wasn't sure yet if I'd call her back, but I saved the number. Then I put my phone away, pulled my coat tighter, and walked toward the garage. For the first time in 3 years, I actually felt like I could breathe again. The fallout that followed was swift and exact. 2 weeks after the wedding, my mother was called into the district attorney's office for questioning about the Sandwich property sale. The interview ran 4 hours. When she came out, according to what Harold told me later, she looked 10 years older. Her attorney, a colleague from her own tennis club who'd initially agreed to represent her, withdrew from the case within days, citing a conflict of interest. I suspect the real reason was simpler. He'd seen the evidence and wanted no part of a case he was already losing. My father moved into a hotel downtown by the end of the month, because even mid-collapse, Edward Ashworth still kept up appearances. He released a statement through a family friend, saying he was seeking space to process recent revelations, and had no prior knowledge of any improper transactions. Whether anyone believed that was a different question entirely. His signature sat right next to hers on the transfer paperwork. Claiming ignorance only works if people are inclined to give you the benefit of the doubt, and after 30 years of standing silently beside her, most of his goodwill was already spent. Brooke and Nathaniel postponed their honeymoon indefinitely. I heard through a cousin that Nathaniel's parents wanted his legal exposure fully clarified before letting the couple travel internationally at all. The dream of moving into my penthouse, obviously, died that same night. The social fallout unfolded more quietly, but just as completely. A few weeks later, my mother received an email from the charity board she'd co-chaired for 17 years, informing her that her involvement in the upcoming gala was under review pending further developments. Translation. She'd been quietly disinvited from her own life's work. The State Bar Association opened an ethics inquiry after 2 attorneys who'd been at the wedding filed formal complaints, not about anything she'd done to them directly, but about conduct unbecoming an officer of the court. A small item ran in the Herald's legal column not long after. An unnamed Boston area attorney under investigation for alleged document fraud tied to a 2022 real estate transaction. No name printed. In a legal community as small and tightly wound as this one, no name was needed. Everyone knew within hours. I got 11 texts that week from people I hadn't heard from in years. Some apologies, some quiet support. A few clearly just fishing for gossip, which I ignored completely. The one that actually mattered came from Jennifer Colfax, following up her wedding night message with a full email. She wanted to apologize properly, said watching how I'd carried myself under impossible pressure had made her ashamed of how quickly she'd believed my mother's version of things for years. Her firm was renovating its office floor and wanted a designer who understood professionalism and discretion. Was I interested? I sat with that email for 3 days before answering. Part of me wanted to reject anything connected to my mother's world entirely, but another part recognized that Jennifer wasn't Diane. She was someone who'd been lied to, believed it, and was now actually trying to make it right. I took the meeting. The project was the biggest I'd ever landed, a full redesign of 2 conference rooms and a reception floor, budget just under $90,000. By the following month, I'd gotten 2 more inquiries from attorneys who'd been guests that night. Word was spreading, not just about my mother's downfall, but about my work. People who used to write me off as the Ashworth girl with the decorating hobby were suddenly very curious about the Ashworth girl who'd refused to fold on a stage in front of everyone she knew. I vetted every single new client carefully, turned down one project from someone clearly more interested in gossip than design. But slowly, I started rebuilding. Not just the business. Myself. The strangest twist landed a few weeks after that. A certified letter arrived from a real estate attorney on the Cape, informing me the original sale of Grandma's property was under legal review and the current owners had been notified of potential title defects. Harold explained what it meant. If the original sale was voided for fraud, the buyers could have claims against my mother for the purchase price, and the property itself might revert back to my grandmother's estate. It's complicated, he said, and it could take years, but the wheels are turning. My mother, who'd spent her whole life accumulating status and property and social standing, was watching all of it slip through her fingers in real time. I won't pretend some part of me didn't feel a flicker of satisfaction in that, but mostly what I felt was something closer to peace. Justice was never about revenge. It was just the world finally catching up to what was already true. 3 months after that wedding, I'm sitting on the balcony of my own penthouse, watching the sun go down over the harbor, sky streaked orange and pink, the water throwing it all back like scattered glass. It's the kind of evening Grandma has always loved, big sky, quiet, a glass of wine, and absolutely nowhere to be. She's here right now, actually. She comes every Sunday. I pick her up from Willowbrook in the mornings and we spend the whole day together, sometimes the museum, sometimes just this balcony talking. Today we've been talking about my father. He called me yesterday, I tell her. She raises an eyebrow. He wanted to explain his side, says he didn't know about the Cape house. Says Mom handled all the paperwork and he just signed where she told him to. Do you believe him? I actually think about it, really think. I believe he chose not to ask questions. I think he's been choosing not to know things for 30-some years. She nods slowly. And what did you tell him? That I need time, that I'm not ready to see him yet. That if he wants a relationship with me, he has to earn it not by explaining, not by apologizing, but by actually showing up consistently for once. She squeezes my hand. That's a healthy boundary, sweetheart. We sit in easy silence a while, the sunset deepening. Brooke texted me last week, I add. Asked if I'd call her, said she wants to talk. Will you? I look out at the boats coming back into their moorings, the city lights starting to flicker on. Not yet, maybe not for a long time. I pause. She knew Grandma, maybe not about the Cape House specifically, but about the pressure, the manipulation, the lies. She was standing right there every single time Mom called me selfish or ungrateful. She never once defended me, never once questioned any of it. That's true. If she wants a sister, she has to actually want the truth. She has to be willing to see who our mother really is, and I don't think she's there yet. I take a breath. So I'm not closing the door forever. I'm just not opening it until she's ready to walk through it honestly. Grandma smiles, small, proud. You learned something I wish I'd learned at your age. What's that? That love without respect isn't love. It's just habit. You deserve both. I started therapy that spring. My therapist specializes in family systems and boundary work. Every Tuesday at 4 in an office in Cambridge, I talk through things I'd spent 32 years avoiding. It's hard some weeks. Exhausting, honestly. But it's also the most important thing I've ever done for myself. There's someone else, too. His name's James, an architect I met at a design conference that spring. Kind eyes, a genuinely terrible sense of direction, and absolutely no idea who the Ashworths of Beacon Hill even are. He likes me for me, my work, my laugh, my habit of talking to my plants like they can hear me. It's new. It's slow. It's the first time I've let someone in without wondering what they'd think of my family first. Grandma sets her wine glass down. You know, she says, I've been thinking about what I want my legacy to actually be. You already gave me a legacy, I say, gesturing at the penthouse around us. The property. She shakes her head. The other thing, the thing that actually matters. I wait. I spent too many years keeping the peace, she says, staying quiet to avoid the conflict, letting Diane become who she became because confronting her felt too painful. She looks at me steadily. I don't want that for you. I want you to speak the truth even when it's hard. I want you to protect yourself even when it feels selfish. I want you to know that being kind to people never has to mean staying silent. My eyes go hot. I'll remember. She pats my hand. Now what's for dinner? All this emotion is making me hungry. I laugh, and the sound fills up the whole evening. This is my life now. A penthouse that's genuinely mine. A grandmother who loves me without conditions attached. A business that's actually growing. Boundaries that hold. A future I'm building one honest decision at a time. If you're watching this and some part of you recognized your own family in it, if you've ever been told that setting a limit makes you selfish, that you owe your comfort to people who have never once protected yours, I need you to hear this. You're allowed to want more. Being kind to yourself was never the opposite of being kind to others. It's the whole foundation everything else sits on. Thank you for staying with me through this one. If this story hit something true for you, drop it in the comments. Tell me your version. I actually read every single one. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories about family, boundaries, and figuring out who you actually are once you stop performing for people who never deserved the performance. Check the description for more like this. And remember, protecting your peace was never selfish. It was never optional. It's the one thing nobody gets to take from you again. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next one.